The last 2 months have been super hectic. I was preparing to go to Uganda and doing all the pre-production for that. We filmed in Uganda for over 2 weeks. We got back, offloaded footage, and then immediately went into 10 days of client work before being gone on a 2-week road trip with the fam. It's just been an absolutely chaotic 2 months with the needle to the red, and I'm exhausted. I'm not trying to start a pity party for myself because that is all of our lives. We all have some chaos. We all have jobs and families and kids and things we're trying to do around our home, and Xfinity's calling us because they want their hardware back so they can stop charging us an extra 20 bucks a month. There are just seasons of life that are chaos. But there's something that has always helped me manage and tame that chaos, and that is moments of solitude. The naturalist John Muir, of course, has some incredible things to say about solitude. I love John Muir. But one of my favorite examples of solitude and the impact it can have on your life and on others actually comes from Dr. Martin Luther King. It's 1956, he'd just been woken up by a phone call, it was another death threat, and he ended up staying up, made himself a pot of coffee, and just sat at his kitchen table, just him, himself, and a cup of coffee. No cell phone, no TikTok, no children. At 27 years old, he was managing the bus boycott, he was pastoring a church in Montgomery, and he was fathering, his family through this season where he was getting constant death threats. And actually 3 days after this phone call, someone threw a bomb and blew up his front porch. Thank goodness no one was hurt. But what I love about the story is in this moment of solitude where it's just him and his thoughts, he has this moment that replenishes his resolve to continue this fight. Amidst all of these things, amidst all this chaos, this moment of solitude is what really fortified his resolve. Whenever I think back on this story, I can't help but ask myself, what would have happened if, instead of sitting there alone with his thoughts, if he would have opened up Instagram or turned on the news or checked his email to see what's on sale at B&H? Or even, what would have happened if this event took place at noon instead of midnight? What happened at that dining room table, the resolve that was replenished within him just through this moment of solitude, completely changed the course of civil rights. It changed the course of history just because of this moment of solitude. This is obviously just anecdotal evidence. It's one man's experience of solitude. But there are countless studies on how our brains are wired to receive some solitude, some reprieve from all of the noise, the inundation with ads, the time on social media, all this stuff. I mean, the average American today sees between 4,000 and 10,000 ads every single day. And a study from back in 2011 showed that the average American in 2011, over a decade ago, was receiving 5 times more information than the average American did in 1986. 5 times the amount of information. We are inundated with information and ads and experiences. We know that our brains need a break. I mean, think about it. When was the last really good idea that you had? I mean, think about just the last time you took a shower, the last time you were washing dishes. How many of us, our best ideas come to us in those moments where our brains are just free to think and to decompress, and we're not forced to look at something or consume something or take in something? We all know that our brains need a break. Our souls just need a break sometimes from the constant inundation with noise. So we know we need solitude. But how do we find it, and where do we find it? So this park is really close to my house. It's quiet, it's pretty secluded, it's forested, it's got a little creek that runs around the outside perimeter of the park. It's a wonderful little park to just come to, turn my phone off and walk around. And if I have time, after dinner or in the morning before my family gets up, I just like to come here and do that. Just turn my phone off and wander. But if I'm perfectly honest, I really don't get to come to this park but maybe 2 or 3 times a month.
most of my solitude happens within 3 blocks of my house. And I think that comes down to, I find that solitude is less of something that I go and find and more of a space that I create for myself. And I think, we would see like a lot of like Instagram reels and cool things about going someplace beautiful and quiet and just grand and finding solitude. But for me, that's true. You can go to those places and find solitude and be alone and just be content with your thoughts. But that's just not practical for me and for most of us. What's practical for me is waking up in the morning, making a cup of coffee, and just going for a quiet walk by myself. Hey, you can hear my favorite bird. That's the Swainson's thrush. Yeah, I love that bird. Okay, so in order to create that space in just your average suburban neighborhood, I've had to set a few ground rules for myself, and it really starts the night before. I try not to put my phone in my room. I try and charge it somewhere else. I try and use my watch to set an alarm, because for me, as soon as I see my phone in the morning, it's game over. So if the first thing I'm looking at is my phone and I see a text message or an email or some notification from my cameras that a person was detected, it's all over. Once my brain starts going, it just keeps going. So for me, the number one thing is I try not to look at my phone for at least an hour after I wake up, just to give myself some space to not have, like I kind of mentioned earlier, having 5 times more information in 2011 than we did in 1986. Just to not have that enter my day first thing in the morning. And the other thing is, before I go to bed, I close my office door, because it's pretty easy for me. My office is right across from my bedroom. It's pretty easy for me to just walk out of my bedroom and into my office every morning, and then I see my desk, I see whatever I was working on the night before, and that just, again, that gets my brain going and it's over. So I close my office door. The first thing I do most mornings is I walk into the kitchen, start the little electric tea kettle, make myself some coffee or tea, and then go for a walk. And since coming back from Africa, I've kind of taken it a step further and I've turned off all the notifications on my phone. So the only notifications I get are for phone calls and text messages. And honestly, most of the time, my phone is in some sort of do not disturb where only certain people can call me. Because I just found I don't like all those notifications. I don't need to know who's sitting on pole for the next Formula One race every single Saturday. That's not something that I need introduced to my life. I'll check my email when I need to check my emails. And that has really helped me create these little moments of solitude where if I take a break for lunch, I'll go take a step outside and I'll find myself just hanging out there for a few minutes. I'm not checking Instagram or YouTube or anything like that. I just get to sit there for a few minutes and enjoy some silence in the middle of the day. And I think that's really important, especially like we were talking about, how many of those moments where we're like in the shower or washing dishes where you find that just an idea comes to you. So I think it's really important to help create more pockets of that throughout your day. But I think it's important to have realistic expectations for your times of solitude. Like, I don't create spaces of solitude to have ideas. It's not like when I go for a walk, something magical happens and all these ideas flow and I pull out a pen and pad and write everything down. That's not why I do it. I do it because I know it's good for me. But the flip side of that coin is on the days where I don't take time to ground my day in the morning or go for a walk and just create these intentional spaces of solitude, my day just feels off. I'm not as focused. I get easily distracted. I feel like I can't focus on tasks and I just keep bouncing around all over the place. So for me, it is something that can permeate throughout all of my day, but it's not like all these ideas for videos or how to edit this piece. It's not like those just start popping up to me left and right, but it's creating the space for my brain to work out of a calm environment. All right, so I think for those of us who really want to create those spaces of solitude, it really does just come down to setting some rules for yourself to quiet the notification, to quiet the noise in your life, and to step into that quiet space and away from that noise. And I mean, it doesn't have to be a place like this. It can just be, for me, like I said, most of my quiet time, most of my solitude happens within 3 blocks of my house, just wandering around my neighborhood. I very rarely get to go into places like this. Like when my wife and I lived in Memphis for grad school for a few years, I would just go walk around the block or walk around the campus just to find some solitude. And it was still quiet. I would get up early or I would go out a little later in the evening. I would silence my phone. I wouldn't listen to music and I would just enjoy the space around me. So I hope you got something out of this video. I hope this can help you create some spaces of solitude and understand really the need for solitude. Maybe you've been in a little bit of a creative funk lately and you just need something to help get you out of it. Try some spaces of solitude. Take a week, silence from notifications first thing in the morning, go for a little walk around your block and see how that can help you. So remember to like and subscribe if you want more content like this. I talk about camera stuff and a lot of documentary film, but I also like to talk about subjects like this, those little nuggets of information that have really helped keep me from burnout, because this is one of those careers where you can just keep creating and you can create all day, every day, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. You could never stop. But that's a super easy way to burn out. And that harms you, that harms the community, because people really want to see your art. So hope you keep creating, and we'll see you next time.